On a white background, the Seeing Eye logo appears, an illustration of a guide dog standing next to a person holding its harness. Title: The Seeing Eye presents Partners in Travel, how the orientation and mobility instructor can assist the guide dog user. Now, a middle-aged man with a salt and pepper goatee.
Hello, I'm Lucas Frank with the Seeing Eye. I'm a certified orientation and mobility specialist and a guide dog mobility instructor. The Seeing Eye is the world's oldest guide dog school, located in Morristown, New Jersey.
Shots of instructors working with students.
For many years, the Seeing Eye and orientation and mobility specialists have worked together to enhance the safety and efficiency of travelers who are blind.
Along a path.
Orientation and mobility training is the first step towards becoming a guide dog user. The Seeing Eye only accepts applicants who already are competent cane users and confident travelers.
Crossing a street.
Many of our applicants credit their mobility instructors with influencing their decision to get a guide dog.
In a library.
In your career, you may have already worked with people who are guide dog users or who will become guide dog users.
Working as human guide.
While our students receive extensive training and are able to develop new routes independently, they may contact you after they return home for further assistance. This presentation will show you real-life situations in which guide dog travelers may seek your services and demonstrate techniques to help.
A team orients to a door.
These techniques were developed in coordination with instructors of the Seeing Eye and graduates, but they will be applicable to any guide dog handler. Please remember that the guide dog user may have better insight into what his or her orientation needs are, especially what his or her guide dog's needs are, than you do.
A student solos.
Unless safety is at stake, defer to the blind person's wishes. If you have further questions or would like more information about the Seeing Eye, please contact us at 800-539-4425 or visit our website at seeingeye.org. We hope you find this to be a valuable resource, and we thank you for your commitment to our profession.
The light fades to black. Now, on a sunny day, a man using a white cane navigates a sidewalk.
The cane is an obstacle detector, while the dog is primarily an obstacle avoider. Therefore, tactile landmarks and clues that are easily recognized by and useful to the cane traveler may be difficult or impossible for the guide dog traveler to make use of. This can make it challenging for the mobility specialist to identify effective solutions to orientation problems. A guide dog handler makes use of his or her knowledge of the particulars of the route, as well as of their general understanding of streets and sidewalks, to direct their dogs to their destinations. They also make use of their dog's vision, memory, and importantly, the resulting behaviors to replace and supplant the tactile information mobility specialists are used to employing as landmarks and clues. Some clues are used by cane travelers and guide dog handlers alike.
Words on a white title screen read auditory information.
Auditory information is as important in travel for the guide dog handler as it is for the cane traveler.
A guide dog handler waits at an intersection.
Here, Michelle listens for the surge of parallel traffic to initiate her crossing. She hears the pedestrian on his cell phone as he begins to cross. Her dog leads her around.
They cross the street, now on a brick plaza.
Here, Michelle uses the sound of the fountain on this plaza as a landmark to locate the entrance to the building. Of course, the noise of the fountain might also mask other sound clues.
They go inside. Title: tactile information.
Tactile clues, however, are less important for the guide dog traveler. The handler avoids many environmental landmarks without stopping.
A cane traveler on a sidewalk.
After crossing the driveway slope, the cane traveler has safely located a sidewalk cutout and a pillar. This contact may give the traveler information about her location on the block.
A guide dog handler on the same sidewalk.
The guide dog handler goes around the cutout and pillar without making contact, yet the fact that the guide dog led her off the sidewalk at a certain point also gives her some information about that location.
They go around the pillar. Title: time, distance, rate.
Time, distance, and rate are important for the guide dog traveler.
A wide open plaza.
Crossing this wide plaza with no tactile and few auditory landmarks to rely on, Michelle must use her sense of distance traveled over time at a certain speed as a guide. When she thinks she's gone far enough, she directs her dog to begin the turn toward the entrance to the office.
Left.
They angle left to a set of double glass entry doors.
Where's that door?
Title: the dog's actions as information.
The dog's behavior at certain points can be so predictable that it acts as the dominant clue.
A team on a sidewalk.
Here, The dog's behavior, the expected turn to the right, was the clue that confirmed Michelle's exact position. Dogs are creatures of habit, and usually will indicate places they've been before. These indications by the dog become landmarks or clues for the dog's handler. For example,
A team nears a store.
notice how the dog turns its head and pauses slightly, indicating the pharmacy, a place where her handler stops on a regular basis. But today, Michelle isn't going to the pharmacy, so she instructs the dog to keep going by saying, "Hop up."
No, we're not going. Hop up.
They continue on their way.
Good girl.
Dog handlers frequently travel independently to new areas and may solicit information to make that job easier.
Michelle on the
Yeah,
phone.
I would love to go. My calendar is free for tomorrow afternoon, so I'm going to cross community. And there's Lauren B's, I'll pass that. Then the pet store. And then the next door is
The next day,
Milano's.
Michelle on the route.
And that is at the end of the building line, so I can go beyond that.
She stops.
And then turn around and come back, and I know I'm right there.
She arrives.
But they may, for their convenience, seek out an orientation and mobility specialist to help them. There are two basic possible approaches for teaching a destination to a guide dog team: forward chaining or backward chaining. Forward chaining, that is, showing the dog the route from the beginning to the end, is the more common choice. However, back chaining, starting close to the destination rather than the true starting point, may be particularly helpful in areas where there are few other clues or landmarks available to the handler. We will begin with a forward chaining example. This is a relatively straightforward situation requiring the crossing of a small parking lot.
A guide dog team crosses a lot.
What is important here is that at the conclusion of the exercise, the dog understands where the team is going and that the handler has knowledge of the layout so that she can direct and support her dog. To do that, we'll use a process we call Orientation, Coaching, and Solo, or OCS. In some situations, all three parts of this process may be required. In others, only one or two may be sufficient. When orienting a guide dog traveler to a new area, you have two goals. First, give the traveler an overview of the environment. Second, help her to help her dog develop a familiarity with potential objectives and routes to them. First, familiarize yourself with the area. In the orientation phase, go human guide and explain clues and landmarks. At this time, the blind person heels the dog, meaning that she does not hold the harness. The dog walks at her side on leash. It's off duty. As you walk and explain, the guide dog handler may make key points along the route memorable for the dog by praising it. Walk through the route as often as necessary for your client and her dog to have a solid grasp of the situation. Remember, dogs are creatures of habit and will usually indicate places they have been before.
Outside,
After we make
an
the left
instructor
turn, there
in
is
the
a slight
orientation
incline
phase.
here, which would help you know that you are on the right path. It's going to start to even out good. And up ahead on the left is the doors.
They approach the building.
Once the blind person is comfortable with the route, step into coaching position behind the handler's right shoulder and let the handler work her
A
dog.
photograph illustrates.
Here, Kristen is following the unit closely, staying behind her right shoulder. Offer reminders along the route if needed, while she reinforces it in the dog's mind with praise at appropriate points. Intervene as little as possible.
Back outside, Kristen coaches the
Heading out now,
handler
so
along
keep
the
about
same
3
route.
feet on your left.
Okay, hers left. Left inside.
They reach the door
Good boy.
and go
There he
inside.
is. Good job.
Finally, let the guide dog user work the route alone. If possible, observe from a spot out of the dog's view. However, this may not be possible or may have too great an effect on the dog's work. If so, simply remain silently in coaching position. Monitor safety, and if necessary, calmly direct the team to stop, but avoid intervening too quickly.
The handler solos the same route. Kristen well behind.
Left inside, Harris. Left. Good boy, inside.
They arrive at the door.
That a boy. Good job.
They go inside.
Now, let's look at these ideas in practice.
An instructor orients a graduate.
Here, we will utilize a forward chain to assist this seeing eye graduate in locating the local supermarket. To shop in the store, Christina must locate the entrance to the parking lot, cross the lot, and find the proper door. Initially, explain the pattern of the route and be human guide.
Back out on the
Guarded by a
sidewalk,
guardrail.
Kristen
So we
orients
need
the
to
team.
pass that and go towards the driveway.
Remember to position yourself on the guide dog user's right side, since she will be heeling the dog with its leash in her left hand. As you walk, describe any helpful clues and landmarks. Here, the dip of the driveway is something the guide dog user might detect.
They stop.
The guide dog user may wish to walk through the route several times, depending on its complexity and the past experience of the team. She, meanwhile, praises the dog at significant locations, like the driveway entrance, to encourage the dog to recognize them. At the ultimate destination, the traveler gives the dog lots of happy praise. It's important to go into the store.
Perfect. Girl.
They reach the doors and walk inside.
Girl!
Kristen now in coaching position.
Next, have the guide dog user try the route while you observe from slightly behind and to the right.
Slight right.
This position makes you less distracting to the dog. It may be necessary to tell the guide dog user when she is approaching the next turn. Try to prevent the team from making a mistake at this point because they need positive patterning now. Remind the traveler of clues, landmarks, and distances as needed, but let her work the route independently as much as possible. Finally, the guide dog user solos the route.
The team solos across the lot.
During this solo phase, intervene only if the unit's safety is in jeopardy. If that is the case, calmly direct the team to stop. Notice that while the cane user might try to locate the change in pavement from asphalt to concrete to know when to turn, a guide dog user will make minimal use of intermediate tactual landmarks. Rather, she uses hearing, time, distance, and rate, and her dog's eyes to locate her objectives.
They solo back out of the store.
A college campus can be a difficult area for a blind traveler to master.
An outdoor quad.
This is because there are few landmarks, large open areas to negotiate, and networks of intersecting pathways. But the OCS process, Orientation Coaching Solo, will work in this setting too. After surveying the environment and planning your route, begin with orientation. Going human guide, explain the route, and locate useful landmarks and clues.
An instructor orients a team.
This may include physical characteristics like hills or steps, auditory clues, or time, distance, and rate information. At each turn, the guide dog handler will put the dog at sit and give a lot of praise to make the spot memorable.
The team repeats the route, the instructor now in coaching position.
Repeat the route several times if necessary until the guide dog handler is sure of it. Note the position of the instructor. At this stage, if the dog were to miss a certain turn or intermediate landmark in 2 successive repetitions, take a break or move on to something else and return later. Finally, observe the team as they solo the route.
The team solos down some stairs and continues along the path.
The OCS process works indoors too. Michelle must locate her classroom. The orientation phase includes familiarization with the room numbering system and the layout of the building.
The team indoors.
Again, follow just behind and to the right. Coaching is needed. Michelle gives the dog suggested commands to direct her to the destination.
They turn right.
These commands perform a function similar to trailing in cane travel and are used to direct a dog to the next familiar or likely looking point on the route.
Good, perfect. Now let's
At the
go.
correct door, she gives lots of praise and goes in.
The team enters the room.
Good.
Finally, she solos the route. The instructor is out of sight and gives the team time to work without interference.
The team successfully solos to the door.
The 2 previous examples are what is called forward chains or front chains. This means that the individual and the dog learn the route from beginning to end. However, in some situations, it may be preferable to build the dog's memory and understanding of a route or destination from the end back to the beginning. This is called the back chain. One can think of this as being like learning a piece of music from the end first. This approach is particularly useful where there are few landmarks available for the handler to use. For example,
A graduate enters a library.
here in the library, the graduate wants to navigate to a quiet study area.
Passing the front desk, she navigates the hallways with her dog.
At the seeing eye, Many of our graduates have learned to use a skill called targeting that uses food, a red target, and a clicker to help dogs learn new destinations. This is an optional technique that some, but not all, of our graduates are familiar with. Other schools may use similar tools and techniques.
The team moves to a quiet carrel. There's a red bell on the back of the chair.
To inform the dog that the carrel is her destination, Eliza attaches a target to the back of the chair when she does locate it, perhaps with your help, and gets the dog to touch it with her nose, ringing the bell when she does.
She gives the dog a treat.
After several repetitions of this, the student will move on to the second stage.
In a hallway,
Here, she builds a back chain to the carrel, gradually working her way back to the library entrance.
she solos out.
At each successful repetition, she clicks the clicker and gives her dog a treat.
The team arrives at the carrel.
Good boy.
Then she removes the target and makes sure her dog has understood the idea.
They arrive at the carrel again. The bell on the chair is gone. She settles the dog under the table.
Crossing a busy street is a common challenge for the guide dog handler. Like cane travelers, the guide dog handler listens to the sound of traffic to determine when it's safe to cross. While crossing the street, a turning car might cut them off, or a hybrid car at low speed may be too quiet to detect. In this case, the dog will check, meaning it will slow down or stop because of oncoming traffic.
A dog checks a handler.
The guide dog handler recognizes the check and stops as well. When the way is clear, the dog will continue.
They continue safely across.
Guide dogs are trained to look for the opposite curb to make a straight crossing. Sometimes, however, the traffic patterns at an intersection or the presence of a pedestrian island may dictate an irregular route. Intersections themselves may have unique characteristics requiring that the dog be taught individually the correct path. Here again, you can be of assistance.
An instructor orients a graduate.
Use OCS, Orientation Coaching Solo, to familiarize your client with the intersection.
They cross a street.
Going Human Guide, explain the traffic pattern and other pertinent information about the intersection. Then walk through the crossing, still going Human Guide. At each target point here, Christina puts her dog at sit and gives it praise. Now, coaching. After a few repetitions, the guide dog handler tries the crossing while you follow behind the client's right shoulder.
The instructor follows behind.
Then let the guide dog traveler try the crossing on her own while you remain at a safe distance.
The light fades to black. Now a white title screen. Country work.
Some sections of Michelle's town are without sidewalks. In rural or suburban settings, guide dog users work with the shoreline to the left, facing oncoming traffic. Michelle has been taught to check frequently to verify her position.
On a street with no sidewalk.
She's also responsible for reinforcing the dog's good work with praise, or for reprimanding the dog, if needed, to teach it to stay well left. The dog is trained to follow the shoreline closely. And if there's an intersecting road, to follow the shoreline around the corner before crossing the road and continuing. This is called indenting the intersection.
The dog indents, then crosses the street.
Often, though, it's difficult for the dog to distinguish between an intersecting road and a driveway. Again, go Human Guide at first.
Now with an instructor.
This gives you an opportunity to explain the setting and the guide dog user time to reinforce her dog after making turns at the appropriate spots. Next, follow the team closely, remaining in position. If the dog appears to drift right, away from the shoreline, calmly tell the blind person so that she can take corrective measures. She may choose to use a cane to more easily detect the shoreline, as we show here in the video.
She touches the shoreline with her cane.
As they approach an intersection, the instructor can alert the blind person. If the dog does not indent, heel it and show it the proper shoreline again. Praise the dog at the correct spot and repeat the approach. After several repetitions, let the team solo.
Michelle solos with her guide dog along the shoreline without a cane.
Thank you for your time. We hope you found this presentation useful and informative. If you have any questions about this presentation or about working with one of our graduates, please contact the Seeing Eye at 800-539-4425 or visit us online at www.seeingeye.org.
Closing credits. Partners in Travel. Written and narrated by Lucas Frank, COMS, GDMI. Produced by Craig Garrettson. With thanks to Christina Brino and Autumn, Eliza Cooper and Harris, Michelle Drolet and Tizzy, Kristen Lake, COMS GDMI, Atlantic Health System, and Drew University. Partners in Travel, The Seeing Eye, copyright 2012. President, Dr. James A. Kutz Jr. Director of Instruction and Training, David Johnson. Director of Donor and Public Relations, Jean Thomas. This program was made possible by the generous support of the William G. and Helen C. Hoffman Foundation and the Dolphin R. McMahon Foundation. The light fades to black.